Okay, so we are reading Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. We are in chapter 19. We are just going to go through the chart and then move on to page number 174. Okay, so when you look at this chart, right, the first thing that you see, let us start from the lowest number, number 1. So touch, movement, and presence is kinesthetic, right? So kinesthetic feeling in your body, like the feeling of balance, shivers, hair standing on the end, energy running, physical pain or pleasure, right? So now what does this mean, right? This is also the first exercise that he was talking about over here. When you see the exercise to receive spiritual guidance, he says, if you are the kinesthetic type, one of the exercises is that you can just breathe in your, just focus on your breathing and follow it to your center. Now, many times when we are getting into meditative states also, and also in the workshops, we constantly tell you to pay attention to the changes that are happening in your body when your hair is standing up. Like, for example, whenever I'm saying something that hits the nail on the head, my hair will stand up. So I know that that's a kinesthetic response of the body to tell me that, yes, some energetic, what I'm doing is correct. Many times you'll have this energy vibrations coming through the body. Sometimes you'll have a shivering taking place. Sometimes your eye will start to blink or tick. You can get a ticking over here also, right? So all these things are basically the kinesthetic senses working. So you're getting that information, or you're getting the download from the first chakra. The second chakra is the emotional center, right? So the emotional center, whenever you feel emotion, you can feel a heaviness in the chest, for example. Like, we say my heart is breaking. So you can get a pain in the chest like that. So whenever you're feeling joy, fear, or anger, that is, you're relating to it from the second chakra, right? The third chakra is the solar plexus. Now, the solar plexus is also related to your gut. So when you're getting intuitive insight and there is no empirical or no logical basis to that insight, that is coming from your third chakra. When you feel a sense of oneness, when you feel a sense of loving everything, etc., you're operating from the fourth chakra and you're getting insight from the fourth chakra. When you hear sounds, etc., when there is communication happening, you're operating from the fifth chakra or the throat chakra. When you're seeing things, right, you're getting a visual picture, like a movie is running, or you're seeing flashes of images, etc., you're getting the insight from the third eye or the sixth chakra. And when you have a sense of knowing, you just know that this is going to happen, that is coming from your seventh chakra. So again, there are so many ways of sensing things, and every of the senses that you have, these clair senses, is related to a particular chakra. So the more you use these senses, the more prominent and effective it will ultimately become for you. Okay, any questions on this? Anyone, anything to add or say? Has anyone experienced these methods of sensing and getting intuition from the expanded states of consciousness? Anyone would like to say anything? Personally speaking, I have experienced all of them, to be frank with you. When we are going to visit people, or we are sitting with people, or when we are doing biofield tuning, when we are going into, again, in the meditation processes, in the workshops, all of these I have experienced at one time or the other on a regular basis. Let's put it that way. Anyone would like to say anything on this? Nothing? Dipali, does this answer your question?
Yeah. I think even I've experienced most of these at some point or the other.
Yeah.
And, either it's a feeling, it's a deep emotion. It can be in anger. It can be even like the first ones also. You can feel sweating in your palms, or like she said, so many things. Like, so if I try and remember, most of them have already happened. But to experience it more, I think like you said, one needs to keep practicing and being aware. So one keeps getting in touch of these subtle signs, because they're really subtle. And if we do it often, we can really know what's happening around us, and I think help ourselves and others around us a lot. No?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any comments? Okay, so we can move on. I think, okay, then, yes.
Anger. I mean,
Yes, Auntie?
because this joy, fear and anger for the second one, emotional.
Yes.
You get angry very, I mean, so often, and the joy is there. This is a usual phenomena every day. So the second chakra is working at that time.
Yeah, exactly. So then you're feeling that's what she's saying, that this is an entry coming in from, you see, again, your sex chakra is also it's the fear center, right? It's the procreation center. It is the center of survival also to a certain extent, right? So naturally, all these emotions are felt over here. And what is the meditation practice she's saying is meditate on peaceful sense of well-being. So again, if you look at the grid, right, then if you are operating from the right side of the grid, then you will have joy, you will not get fear and anger. So if something is uplifting, what we want to connect to is what is uplifting in the senses also. And as I told you, when you start getting intuitions, most of the time, you start seeing negative stuff before you start seeing the uplifting stuff. So the survival, right, that it is coming from the second chakra. Most of the time, when we start getting intuitions, it's operating from the second chakra. According to me, that's what my experience has been. Someone else's experience can be different, but that's what my experience has been.
Okay, something bad is going to happen when some
exactly
sort of thing. Okay.
Exactly. We are very tuned to survival, right? So we are always tuning and we are constantly focusing on something going wrong or what can go wrong with us. And that according to her, it's coming from the second chakra. Okay, anyone else, anything? Or should move on? Okay, so Shivangla, we can move on.
Chakra sense of different levels of reality. Now that you have an idea of the information coming through each of the chakras, let us look at the different levels of reality that were discussed in chapter 7 and 15. There I discussed the physical level of reality, the astral, the etheric template level, the celestial level, the ketheric template level, and the beings who exist on each of these levels. I also stated that there are levels beyond the seventh. In order to perceive on any of these levels, the chakra through which you wish to perceive must be opened on that level. If you want to see any particular auric layer, then you must open your sixth chakra to that layer. If you want to see the first level of the auric field, you must open your sixth chakra on the first level of your aura. If you want to see the second level of the aura, you must open your sixth chakra on the second layer of your aura. When beginners start to see the aura, they usually see the first layer because they open their sixth chakra on the first level of their aura. As they progress, they open the sixth chakra on the next consecutive layer and can see that layer. Opening the chakra.
So what does this imply, right? So now we have the chakras. Let's say we have the chakras in front of us and we have these layers of the aura, right? Now, every layer has these chakras. So which is the sense that we are working with? We have to open that chakra in that level or that layer of the auric field. then we can start to perceive it. So in micro chakras, Shamji Bhatnagar says, you open the 7th chakra of the 7th chakra. You open the 7th micro chakra of the 7th chakra. That means you're opening the 7th, in the 7th chakra, that is the crown, you're opening the 7th micro chakra. This is exactly what she's saying over here now. So if I want to perceive, if I want to see something in the first layer of the aura, I have to open the 6th chakra in the first layer of the aura. If I want to hear something which is happening in the first layer of the aura, I need to open the 5th chakra in the first layer of the aura. If I want to see, if I want to feel something in the 7th layer of the aura, then I need to open the 2nd chakra in the 7th layer of the aura, and so on and so forth.
Opening the chakras on levels above the 4th also means that you will start to perceive beings on other planes of existence. This is rather disruptive to your personal life when it first occurs and takes some getting used to. For example, many times you must choose between carrying on the conversation you are having and stopping and listening to the guide who is trying to talk to you at the same time. I have spent a lot of time in this double world existence. Someone who perceives the presence of beings and responds to them appears very flaky to those who don't.
So again, when we are going into these altered states, then it's like I told you about the television, right? The movie of the picture of one channel coming and the sound of the other channel coming. So naturally now you have to discern, which one are you going to focus on? And people who cannot perceive this will naturally think you're crazy, right? So people who do all these things are normally chapped as crazy people. Upay nahi hai uska. You don't have an option. But ultimately, this is the growth path. Everyone has to get into this stuff.
In order to hear a being who lives on the astral level, you must open your 5th chakra on the astral level. If you want to hear a guide on the 5th level, then you must open your 5th chakra on the 5th level of your auric field. If you want to see an astral guide, then you must open your 6th chakra on the 4th level. To see a 5th level guide, you must open your 6th chakra on the 5th level, and so on. As we stated, in chapter 7, there are doors or seals between the chakra levels deep within the hearts of the chakras. These seals or doors must be opened in order to move from one level to the next. This is done by raising the vibrational level of your energy system. To increase and maintain your field at a higher vibrational level means purification work. You must keep your field clear and highly cleared to perceive the higher levels of the auric field. Doing this also means increased sensitivity in your daily life. This means a lot of self-care in terms of diet, exercise, and spiritual practices, to be discussed further in part 6.
So now, what happens? If you want to perceive in these layers, then clarity of your thought, clarity of your being, clarity at all the levels of the aura has to come into play, right? Your physical diet, etc., also needs to change. So one of the things that we have started seeing is many people tell me that when they are going into these higher states, number one, non-veg drops and alcohol their body cannot tolerate anymore, right? The body starts to reject things that are not in congeniality with the level of consciousness that they are operating at. So these are two things that people have come back and told me. So if we are going into those higher states, be prepared, that your body may start rejecting some of the things that you normally like. Okay, it will start to get rid of them. You will not be able to have them anymore. Because it is reducing your vibratory frequency, which is not acceptable to the physical body.
Each level represents another octave higher in vibration than the one below it. To bring your conscious awareness to a higher level means to increase the vibrational rate at which your awareness functions. This is not necessarily an easy task for you, for as you have seen in the material presented in the chapters on psychodynamics, every increase in energy in the system knocks loose blocks that take you through experiences that you have buried within your subconscious because the events were too threatening to be felt at the time they occurred.
So again, when we want to get into these higher states, then we have to drop the facade. We have to start seeing things as they are, right? So a lot of clearing starts to take place. And everything that you've hidden, you've not acknowledged, that needs to get cleared off. Like, for example, Kokil was just sharing that she was talking about her IBS. So I had told her yesterday that it is related to a stress that she experienced, right? So what is she saying over here? Barbara is saying the same thing, that your system knocks loose blocks that take you through experiences that you're buried within your subconscious, right? Now you have to, if you want to cure something, you have to transcend that block. You have to release that block. When you bring awareness to it, that is when you can release the block and ultimately transcend it.
Meditations to enhance experience of each of your auric levels. I have found different meditation practices that will enhance your experience of each of your auric levels. These are also given in figure 19.1 to enhance your experience on the first layer of your aura. Do walking or touching meditations or deep relaxation.
So again, when you're doing walking, right, when you enhance your perception of touch, and when you're doing relaxation, it is connected with the physical body. Whenever your touch or your feel starts to get enhanced, it automatically raises your awareness. So I think it happens in the healing development program, where you enhance all the sensory perception and you can actually feel the difference, right? You first have what we do in the program. We used to do, of course, when we were having physical programs, we used to tell you, okay, you break a basil leaf and taste the flavor. And then you invoke the command to enhance your taste. And when you taste the basil, all the flavors start to get enhanced. The same thing happens with touch. The same thing happens with sight. You know, you're seeing, let's say, an insect walking around, and then you enhance that state by using the command. You'll see immediately the insect starts to, like, it becomes in 3D, and all the colors start getting enhanced. So there are ways, again, in the Monroe process also, where you can actually enhance the sensory perception, which will allow you to connect to this level of the aura, or this level of the conscious awareness.
To enhance your experience of the second layer of your aura, meditate on a peaceful sense of well-being. To enhance your experience of the third level of your auric field, do one-pointedness of mind exercises.
So again, so in the second layer, the sense of well-being, you know, a sense, it's like focus 10, where you are there, right? Or you're just, or the 10-step relaxation process, for example, you're getting relaxed into that state. And then I would say that the focus 10 would be the second layer, like, you know, like you can actually focus your attention when you're getting into F10. So one-pointedness of the mind exercise. You can actually start focusing, and even in focus 12, this can start to happen.
To enhance your experience of your fourth level, meditate on the rose light of love, or focus on loving of love. To enhance your experience of being at the fifth level of your auric field, use sounding or listening meditations.
So again, the same thing, right? When you're getting into focus 12 also, what I've seen is that people cannot, be in anger when they are operating out of focus 12. Also, people have told me when they get into focus 18, it's the heart, it's really the heart energy. You really start operating from the heart stuff. And of course, when all the meditations in Monroe are listening meditations, so you have to listen with the fifth layer of the aura, or the fifth chakra.
To enhance your experience of your celestial body, meditate on becoming one with the Messianic or Christian Christ consciousness. To experience your seventh layer of being, sit in meditation and use the mantra, "Be still and know that I am God."
I think for doing this, you're going into the higher focus levels, like 21 or going into 27, or then again 34. Of course, a semblance of all these states take place in even focus 12. I think we can skip this.
Chapter 20, Hewen's Metaphor of Reality, the Cone of Perception. In the last chapter, I discussed opening your perception to higher levels of reality by increasing the vibratory rate of your auric field. This idea was based on the concept of a multi-dimensional universe composed of levels of vibrational rates existing within the same space.
So again, as I mentioned, the example of that one cable coming into your television and 1,000 channels existing in that same wire, right? How can they exist there? Because the transmission is taking place at different frequency. So different frequencies mean that each of the channels is vibrating at a different vibratory rate.
The more advanced or refined that level of reality, the higher the vibrational rate. I would now like to discuss this multidimensional universe in terms of levels of perception. Hewen says that each of us has a cone of perception through which we perceive reality. One can use the metaphor of frequency to explain this concept, meaning that each of us is able to perceive within a certain frequency range.
So what does that mean? The electromagnetic frequency range is like that, right? What we can perceive is like this. Now, but some people can perceive so much, some people can perceive so much, some people can perceive so much. So depending on our level and range of perception, that is how reality will occur to us.
The more advanced or refined that level of reality, the higher the vibrational rate. I would now like to discuss this multidimensional universe in terms of levels of perception. Hewen says that each of us has a cone of perception through which we perceive reality. One can use the metaphor of frequency to explain this concept, meaning that each of us is able to perceive within a certain frequency range. As humans, we tend to define reality by what we can perceive.
Now, this is important, right? How does reality occur to us? It occurs to us totally dependent on the way that we are perceiving it, right? So the way you perceive reality, someone else will perceive it totally differently. How reality is occurring to us is totally different how it is occurring to a fly, right? We have more or less similar levels of perception, but to let's say a leopard or to a deer, reality occurs totally differently, depending on how they are perceiving and what are the senses that they are using to perceive things.
This perception not only includes all the normal human perceptions, but also the extensions of those perceptions through the instruments we have built, like the microscope and the telescope.
So again, we've enhanced our normal perception through the use of equipment, right? So the more sophisticated equipment can become, we can enhance it through the mechanical means, or we can enhance our perception through spiritual means, which is that internal eyes or internal perception starts to get enhanced. It can work in both ways.
Everything inside a perceptual cone we accept as real, and everything outside that cone isn't real. If we can't perceive it, then it doesn't exist.
Right. So if something is not in our perceptible capacity, then for us, it does not exist. Right. So again, is seeing is believing, or believing is seeing, right? This is a quandary that is always there. And this is something that can't be transcended, right? Now, if you see that example that we keep referring to, the Magellan effect, the natives in that island could not in their wildest dreams imagine that such a big thing could float. So because they couldn't believe it, they could not imagine it also, they could not see it. But when the shaman started to perceive a shift in the way that the waves were coming into the beach, then he shifted his perception to say that there has to be something big over there, which is causing the wave pattern to change. And then he enhanced his perception to be able to see the ship. And once he did it, by osmosis, you could say, the other natives also started to see the ship. Otherwise, they thought that the Europeans are walking out of the water, because they could not, in their wildest dream, perceive that one boat could hold so many people, right? So if it is outside our perceptual range, then we think that it does not exist.
Each time we build a new instrument, we increase our cone of perception, and more things are perceived and therefore become real. The same thing is happening here with high sense perception, but the instrument in this case is our own body and energy system. As we perceive more things through high sense perception, more things become real to us.
So high sense perception is our internal perceptual process, right? As we enhance our perceptual capacity and capability, naturally things become more real to us.
I have attempted to draw a graph using the familiar bell-shaped curve to help describe this phenomenon. Figure 21a. The vertical axis shows clarity of perception and the horizontal depicts frequency range of perception. The bell-shaped curve shown in the middle of the graph can be used to depict the normal perceptual range of a human being, a group of human beings, or for that matter, the whole of humanity. Most of us have clear perceptions as defined by the dotted lines. Outside the dotted lines, our clarity is so low that we tend to discount what we perceive. However, if we accept everything we perceive, then the space under the bell-shaped curve also defines what we call the real universe. The dashed line shows the increase in perception that our instruments give us. We, at least, most of us, accept that as reality also.
So we'll see the graph and then we'll talk about it when we see the graph. Is there an auditory problem? Kamlesh is saying there's auditory issues.
You can hear.
Ashanti, you can hear? Okay, we couldn't hear you. Okay, it's clear. Thank you. Thank you, Nidhi.
Let us look at this from the point of view of what is called the Brahman and the Maya of the Buddhist tradition. Maya is the manifest world, which according to Buddhism is illusion. Brahman is the basic reality that lies beneath Maya and supports what is manifest. It is not to be confused with Brahmin, the educated priest class in the Hindu caste system. Meditation is practiced in Buddhism in order to get beyond the illusion of Maya, which encompasses all pain, and to become Brahman or enlightened. Here we have a concept very similar to the cone of perception. Figure 21b shows the cone of
So it's showing the cone of perception, right? So now let's look at it. So again, the concept, the Hindu concept of Maya and Brahman. So Brahman is the essence, right? It is the Adhar. Everything is based on the precept of Brahman. You could call it the Atma. You could call it the Godhead. You could call it the Tao. You could call it the Chi, whatever you may name it, right? And Maya is what we are witnessing. So Maya is an illusion that has been created by the perception that we have, which is limited. The moment we enhance our perception and we go into oneness, Maya will also dissolve. So if you see this graph over here, if you have 100% over here, so what it says, clarity of perception, this is 100%, and this is the range of the frequency of perception. So if you have a low rate of perception, clarity of perception, then reality is only so much for you, right? But when we have a full range of perception, then you get to know everything that is happening, okay? And the idea is ultimately to enhance this perception to such an extent that it encompasses the whole graph, and then nothing is hidden from you. So then you become one, and you realize that all this is all just a play, nothing else. So again, when you see Brahman, everything is included in Brahman. And Maya, that means even this blank space is including when you perceive from the Brahman sense of things. And Maya is only this area which we are perceiving with our limited perception ability. You were good, Shivanga. One page down. Shivangla, one page down.
Yeah, 1 second, I have to complete the sentence. Here we have a concept very similar to the cone of perception, figure 21b. Shows the cone of perception again, now interpreted from the point of view of Brahman and Maya. The manifest world of Maya lies within our cone of perception, while the unmanifest world of Brahman lies outside the cone of perception. Physicist David Bohm's explicit unfolded order, see chapter 4, lies within our cone of perception, and his implicit enfolded order lies outside our cone of perception.
So the explicit means what is already visible to us, what we can perceive. And the implicit is the potential. So you have the concept of kinetic energy and potential energy, right? So coal has potential energy and steam has kinetic energy. So what is the potential, right? So the implicit and the explicit. What is explicit is what we can see, and implicit is what is possible.
Figure 22a shows the effect that high sense perception has. I have now labeled what we used to call unreal and non-existent as the spiritual reality. As we increase our perceptual range to a higher levels of vibration, more of the spiritual, non-physical world becomes real to us. The more we use our HSP, the more we are able to perceive, which makes more of the spiritual world accessible to us. The more we come out of illusion and into the Brahman or enlightenment. From this point of view, the line of the bell-shaped curve becomes the veil between the spiritual and the material worlds. Herein says, healing is ultimately dissolving the veil between the spiritual and material worlds.
So again, there is one famous painting which is there, and there's a round-shaped thing, and this guy is peering through that veil. Okay, so what is happening? The round thing that is there in that painting, I'll attempt to find that painting. It's depicted in many cases in tarot cards, etc. Also, it's there. So what implies is that is the explicit reality, and what is outside that circle is the implicit reality. Now, the more we can stretch our perception to include the implicit into our explicit, the more closer we get to the concept of Brahman, or the concept of being whole within ourselves. And then that veil starts to get dissolved. So this is something that Robert Monroe also talks about in the Gateway Voyage. He says that all of us are in a box. Okay, it is called the belief system. And the more we can transcend our belief systems, the closer we get to the ultimate reality that we are really aiming to get to through that oneness. So the more belief systems we drop, right? And then after dropping the belief systems, what are our thoughts about it, and what are we doing, behaving, thinking, and how are we proceeding? What is becoming our state of being determines what state of consciousness that we are operating at, right? So the more we come closer to that oneness, the better we are. I don't know how many of you have seen the map of consciousness. Again, the more we operate from that 1 to 1000 that David Hawkins had said, the more we go closer towards that 1000 or 900, the more closer we get to that ultimate reality. And they talk about 500 and above, which is love and above. And you can actually depict that entire scale on the grid to figure out where you're operating from. And the more closer or the less connected you are to the material world, the more connected you are to the spiritual world. So as we enhance our levels of consciousness, material possessions stop having as much value to you as they would have. If you really see a spiritual, highly spiritual person, they would not be attached to anything material. They would live very simplistic kind of lives.
Another very important point is that since our self-definitions are based on what we define as real, as our reality broadens, so do we. Figure 22b again shows the bell-shaped curve, but now I have labeled it in terms of self-definition. Inside the curve, we have a limited self-definition, who we think we are based on our limited view of reality. Outside, we have a self-definition without limits, which is ultimately God. The line of the curve becomes the veil between who we think we are and who we really are. Hewen repeatedly has said that these two veils between the spiritual and material worlds, and between who we think we are and who we really are the same. It is also the veil between what we call life and death. When we know we are spirit, we do not cease to live at death. Rather, we simply leave our physical body, the vehicle which we as spirit made in order to incarnate in the first place. At a person's death, I have witnessed with HSP his spirit leaving the body to join other spirits in the room. At death, the veil dissolves and we go home to who we really are.
Okay. So Shimangla, you can move to the diagram actually. Now, so what is he saying over here, right? While we are here, there is a fear of death. And again, Robert Monroe also talks about the first thing that we need to transcend, right, is the fear of death. We are all scared of dying because we think that this is the ultimate reality and there is nothing beyond that. The moment we can enhance our perception to actually understand that there is something which is in existence beyond this physical matter reality, that is when we come closer and closer to the spiritual reality. So what he is showing in this diagram is the dotted portion is what we are perceiving right now. But there are many realities which are existing, which are not in our perception, right? So again, as we enhance our perception, then all these realities can come into our perceptive level, right? So we enhance our ability to perceive. Is there another diagram? Just go down. So again, our concept of who we are is actually very, very limited. The kind of capacities we have, we really don't know until we attempt to do something, until we attempt to try something out, right? We attempt to get going into something, we really don't know what we are capable of. Okay. Now you can see this happening when, let's say, there's an accident and a child is caught under a vehicle. You will find the mother finds the strength to lift the car and take her baby out. From where does that strength come? Right? In normal physical matter reality, that lady would not have had that strength. But where does that strength come from? Because there is a very big distinction between what we are capable of and what we think that we are capable of. And what we think we are capable of actually tends to kind of limit us. So that is the dotted portion over here of who we think we are, but we are actually more than that. We are 100%. We are a part of the Godhead. So we are capable of everything. It's just that we do not believe it or we do not know it, right? So this line that is there is the veil between who I think I am and who I actually am. You can go back, Shivan.
The manifest world. During a reading some time ago, Heaven led me through an experience that explained manifestation. Here is a transcript of that tape. Heaven. And what then is manifestation? It is related to the ability to sense what has been manifest. That ability relates to the one and relates to each person's individuation and where her sensing window is. What is perceived within that window of sensing is what you have defined as the manifest world.
So again, so whatever you are perceiving is your reality. If you can't perceive something, then it is not your reality. So let us say someone who is color blind, right? What will the universe or what will the reality that we are existing in look to that person? Someone who is blind, what is the existence of their reality? Someone who can't hear, what is the existence of their reality? It is very different for each person. And all of us, there is subtle difference between how we perceive reality, right? It is always slightly different. It can never be 100% the same.
What is perceived within that window of sensing is what you have defined as the manifest world. When that narrow view through which you sense manifestation expands, then the manifest world expands.
So again, as your perception expands, your reality also starts to expand.
For example, when you begin to hear our voice, then you can experience more of the manifest world. That world appears to be less solid or thinner, but it is still of the manifest. The appearance of thinness has more to do with your ability to sense higher frequencies than the reality of higher frequencies having a quality of thinness. This limitation on your sensing, which makes the higher realities appear thinner, also gives you the impression that the higher frequencies appear to be fading back into the unmanifest. However, that is not the case.
So again, beautifully said that again, your perception, because you're not able to perceive it fully, it feels as if it is not fully manifested. So for example, someone who has a really powerful eyesight, let us say someone who could call the eagle eye, right? The way that they would perceive reality or the distance at which they could see will be very different from a person who wears spectacles and who is not able to see. So again, it's like wearing spectacles, right? When you wear a spectacle, it enhances your ability to perceive and the words are looking good. When I take off my specs, I can't read, the things become blurred. So they become thinner. I can't see it anymore. So again, your perception of reality depends on your perceptual ability. But that is not the reality, okay? The reality is something totally different.
Barbara, so what I am seeing is this whole range of sensing into what we call manifest. It is simply a set of sensing when you call it manifest. As that range becomes higher and wider, or one could use the analogy, the more the angle of view increases, or the more our experience broadens, then we are able to sense more of what we call the unmanifest world. Oh, it works both ways, so that when one expands to lower vibrations, the same is also true.
So again, as our frequency range expands, we can perceive more. Now, if we lose it and we drop in the frequency range, then again, our perceptive reality starts to form.
Haven, for some reason or other, humanity has chosen to see or describe the lower vibrations as negativity, as darkness, as unpleasant forms. That is one way to do it, although it is simply based on the dualistic nature of the human being and his perception mechanism. It is part of the sensing system that then sees the lower vibrations as negative.
So again, actually, there is no negative and positive. Everything is, right? It depends on the way that you perceive it. It depends on the way that you are looking at it, which makes something good or bad. So there is nothing good or bad. Everything has its own value, right? We must use the value that enhances our well-being, our state of consciousness.
Barbara, what about the whole long human evolutionary scale? Haven, in terms of evolution, we would be speaking simply of the ability to expand the sensing window. One might say that concrete reality falls within the largest part of the bell-shaped curve of your perception. People tend to disbelieve their perceptions when they reach out beyond one standard deviation or beyond the maximum part of the bell curve. As humanity progresses along its evolutionary path, the bell curve of perception becomes wider and wider.
So again, as we enhance our perception, the bell curve will expand. Things will become more and more real for us. So something which may not be real for someone may be absolutely real for someone else.
The bell curve of perception could be considered to be a curve that shows the limitations of the human mind in this time of its evolution. We would seek to have the entire range of perception of the human mind functioning at the peak of the bell curve over all frequencies of perception, so that expanded reality becomes as concrete as, say, the tape recorder you are holding. The bell curve of perception would then expand to its peak until it becomes flat. When the whole is reached, the manifest and unmanifest become one.
So in the diagram, that dotted part starts to expand and everything gets covered by the dotted part, right? Now, if I know everything, then I am everything. I become one with that Godhead.
Another way to say it is, as you expand your cone of perception, our world becomes more and more manifest to you, and you will then relate to it as part of the manifest world. Thus, as you continue to expand your perception through your personal evolution, more and more of the universe becomes manifest to you, and you approach the universal oneness. In a sense, you are coming back home.
So, right. So now what he's saying is he's in spirit form, right? He's at another vibratory frequency. So some people can perceive him and some people can't. But if I enhance my perception level, that they are always there around me and I can always see them. Now they become part of my reality. Wherever I go, I'm going to see these celestial bodies, all these spirits which are there all around us, right? So they become part of my reality. Now someone else who can't perceive them, they are not a part of their reality. So what he's saying is that as we enhance our perception level, their world starts to become real to us.
Through the expansion of perceived reality, the human being could and does then choose what frequency to perceive in and even exist in the manifest universe. It is a tool for understanding the implicate order. This process is the game of life, one might say. When the implicate and the explicate order become one due to the expansion of perception in the human being, then the state of enlightenment is reached.
So we say, right, when we were not born here, our level of perception was so much, we knew so much. But to experience life, we had to lower our level of perception to experience whatever we wanted to experience, right? Now, once we transcend, we again go back into that level of perception. But while we are here, if we want to perceive the implicit, right, that is not in the manifested reality in normal human consciousness, in the center part, we need to expand our level. Now, all the things that we are doing in awareness are basically to enhance the center part so that our perception of reality starts to get enhanced. Right? That is what we are looking at. And if we, in this existence, if I can enhance it right to the level of when I came, I become enlightened. I become one with the oneness.
For example, let us use this analogy. White chalk drawing on a whiteboard could be like the unmanifest. A blackboard with white chalk could be like the unmanifest first, breaking into dualism. A green board with colored chalk could be like the multi-dimensional universe.
So I think great example, wonderful example. A white chalk on a whiteboard will not be able to be seen. A white chalk on a blackboard would be able to be seen. So now it is becoming dualistic. It is becoming into the manifested. And colored chalks on a whiteboard would be the multi-dimensional universe, that each of those colors represents a different universe.
These could be seen as steps in the evolutionary process of perception of the human being, or of who you are, or of the god goddess within perceiving him or herself. Thus, as we reach into the broader dimensions of reality, the colors become more distinct and more dimensional, as in multidimensional colors within each other.
So again, as we move, right, we connect with our guides, we connect with our masters. Each level of reality will have a different manifestation. This is very much clear even in shamanism, where they have levels of consciousness, the upper world and the lower world. And you meet certain spirits in certain layers or levels of the real world. There's 7 levels up, 7 levels down, right? So you can actually go, you can tune yourself to go into a particular level of consciousness to meet a particular guide. So you're basically expanding your awareness to be able to perceive that.
That is what this discussion is all about, teaching a new perception, high sense perception in humankind. Your internal vision gives you the choice of where to look and what size and in what frequency band. Would you look at the physical manifestation or what you call the physical reality? Or do you want to look at the lower etheric or the emotional or up into the higher etheric or even the 9th or 8th levels of the aura? Where do you choose to place your perception? You also.
This is very important, right? Where do we place our attention? That is what becomes real to us. Okay. So awareness and where we are focused is actually what the game is all about. That is what tells us where we are and what we are. And if we shift that level of perception, reality for us will really shift immediately.
Do you choose to look at a microorganism or do you choose to look at a macroorganism? The manifest God chooses to manifest only through perception. That is, chooses upon which part of the face of the dark to manifest through perceptions. There are beings among you who cannot see you and whom you cannot see. They have chosen to live in a different window of perception. Do you understand, my dear?
So what is he saying here, right? So within the space that we are occupying, there may be many other beings in that same space, but because they are vibrating at a different frequency, we can't perceive them. And since they are operating at a different frequency, they can't perceive us, right? But we are existing in the same space. Okay, I think we can stop here.